Nintendo's just been absolutely chucking content out towards the end of this year, and so I'm trying to like play a little bit of everything that's coming out. There's the Kirby Air Riders demo, then the game comes out in just a couple of weeks, and then we have Metroid Prime 4 a couple weeks after that. But here we are sitting, with Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment that just released, and I really haven't gotten to talk too much about the game. I covered the reviews and talked about what other people thought, but now I'm about 85-90% done with the actual main story. Now, of course, if you've ever played a Warriors game, you know there's tons of side missions, extra content, and grinding that you need to do to complete every side quest and mission, so I'll be doing that afterwards as well. But so far, I'm about 25 hours into this game, and I have a good understanding of how this game works. I've unlocked all the characters and done a good chunk of their skill trees to really figure out how this game is, especially in comparison to other Hyrule Warriors games, especially Age of Calamity, and also just as a Warriors game itself. How does it fare? Now, everything that you're seeing in this video is around the middle of the game, and it's just straight gameplay. I'm not showing any cutscenes, so there's really no spoilers. I mean, yes, I guess technically some side characters, but there's no crazy characters in this game that's going to spoil anything for you, so you can watch it. Everything's going to be okay. Real quick before we get started, we are getting super close to 380,000 subscribers for our massive goal of 400K. You can make it happen by leaving a like and subscribing on this video right now. Thank you to everybody that's tuning in, and let's dive into it. So let me start off by saying that I am very familiar with the Warriors franchise, at least with Hyrule Warriors. Let me just make that clear. Just Hyrule Warriors. I've played nonstop. I have like 500 hours in Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, which was the first one, but just with all the content for the Nintendo Switch. I also played the one on the Wii U and the 3DS, so I've been playing a lot of Hyrule Warriors 1. I 100% completed Age of Calamity in over 100 hours, so yes, I know exactly what I'm talking about and, how the Warriors games work. So how was Age of Imprisonment for me? The first thing I want to start off by saying is the story without getting into too much detail. I know a lot of the reviewers were really down on the story, and that's something that a lot of people said, that the story it was bland because it was stuff that we already knew that was going to happen. I call bull on that. I do. I think the story is great. In fact, I think the story is even better than Age of Calamity. I could not care about Age of Calamity's story, mostly because it was non-canon, and it was just, I don't really care too much about what happened 100 years ago. It was a lot of the same characters and stuff, so it wasn't like we were learning a lot about the champions. We already did, thanks to Breath of the Wild's flashbacks, but something we didn't know much about at all was back to the beginning of Hyrule, and that's what we got some glimpses of in Tears of the Kingdom, but this time we actually get to see how that imprisoning war went. We get to learn about all the sages and all these new characters and stuff with the sages. It was really, really cool, and I genuinely enjoyed having that information, and it makes Tears of the Kingdom even better for me, knowing what Zelda went through when she went back in time, and some of the story beats and characters that they add here was really, really cool with the construct and how it was formed. I love all that stuff. So yeah, I love the story in this game. I genuinely am excited to see Rauru and hear the story of, how everything went down, how Ganondorf took power and all that stuff, and how the sages came to be. I think this is a story that I like. I want to say almost 3 times as much as Age of Calamity's story. I'm sorry, this one was just better for me. I don't know what it is, but I just found myself more interested in these cutscenes than I ever was in Age of Calamity's. So believe it or not, the story was actually a high note for me. But what about the characters with this story? I really do love all the characters. I think Calamo is awesome as a little Deku guy. I think he has a great personality, and I love his little story, finding the construct and stuff, and kind of him and the construct on their own journey was really cool. King Rauru, Queen Sonia, awesome characters, just more on them. You even have Zelda's little handmaid, which is like Lenalia. She was pretty cool as well. She actually, can tie into the story pretty deep with her taking notes about everything that happened. That's how we have all those notes and details in Tears of the Kingdom of the past, which is really cool. But I think the sages and all those extra little characters as well from all the different factions really add up as well. I love how the sages don't just feel like repeats when it comes to their personality, at least. We'll get into their movesets in a second. But their personalities are not just repeats of the champions or the descendants of the champions at all. For instance, Rafika, the Rito sage, is nothing like Rivali, where Rivali is cocky, he's arrogant. Teba is very soft-spoken and laid back and chill, where his son Tulin is very energetic, outgoing, and he's like a child with just super energy, where Rafika is more just like a young, confident leader that's just like very charismatic. You know, you just really like him. He's a really cool, nice guy. He reminds me a lot of Sidon. So yeah, I really liked Rafika, and you can go through all these sages, and you know, they're all slightly different than their predecessor or their future descendants. The only one that was kind of the same, I'd say, is Artie, the Gerudo sage, was very similar to Urbosa, but for the most part, like, these characters all had their unique personalities, lots of dialogue, lots of cutscenes with them, developing their character. The only thing I wish was Ganondorf having more cutscenes. They don't really give us too much background on Ganondorf. They're just like, oh, he's here with the Gerudo, and he's got his army, and then this is how he takes over. And then you get occasional cutscenes of him saying a couple lines of dialogue, but I really want a story that just focuses on Ganondorf and him growing up as a child and stuff, and maybe flashbacks of him as a kid and kind of what led him to this, you know, evil state that he's in, and this takeover of Ganon inside of him. Like, that is what I really wanted to see, and they didn't really dive into that, at least so far, before I get to the very end of the game, which kind of sucked, because I want to hear more and see more of Ganondorf. So I love the story, and I love the characters, but what about the gameplay? Well, this is, to me, where the game started to fall a little short of Age of Calamity, in my opinion, because the combat with the characters and their movesets aren't anything super special in this game. Now, if you remember Age of Calamity, it actually gave every single warrior some unique ability that made them distinctly different from one another. For instance, if you played as Yunobo, you could eat rock roast at certain points of your attacks, which changed the elements of your attacks. Sidon, where you had to hit the attack buttons in a rhythmic pattern in order to deal more damage. In one of the Rito, I can't remember which one, it was either Teba or Rivali, had both a ground and a flying moveset, which made them stand out. Obviously, you could switch in between the two. And this goes for all the characters in the roster pretty much. They all had this, you know, unique approach of having these unique abilities that no other character would have and made them really stand out. That's not really here. Instead, every single fighter has these counter abilities, which, you know, you just pretty much open the menu and press one of the buttons that you set it to. You have a horizontal counter, a vertical counter, and like a shield counter for enemies with like giant rock shields or something like that to break them apart. These don't make the characters all that different, and I realized very quickly that the sages don't really stand out to me in this game. They pretty much play like you would expect a Rito to play, but he's just a sage. You know what I mean? Agriston, the Goron sage, actually just plays like a Goron. You know, and you might think, no duh, but I mean, like, it's literally just a Goron. He rolls around, he punches hard, he has fire elements. And we can go through the entire list. Kia, the sage for the Zora, just plays like a Zora. She can shoot some water from her arms, which is the only differentiating factor compared to the other Zora. But yeah, just like she plays like a traditional Zora would play in your mind. Just very basic movesets. They all have the same special weapons that the champions later will have. So yeah, I was a little let down by the movesets compared to Age of Calamity. It's not to say that they're not good, they're still fun to play as, but it's just nowhere near as creative or as unique as the characters' abilities in Age of Calamity, which is something that I actually missed. And the tiers don't really help either. You know, if you played Age of Calamity, you get the Secret Stone tiers. At least all the champions or sages get them. You also get them in this game, of course, as it's following that story, but they just act as another button prompt on screen instead of an actual, you know, advanced part of their moveset, which I was really hoping for. In fact, my favorite characters came from the regular NPC style characters, where every single region, that means the Gerudo, the Zora, the Rito, and even the Goron, include 2 additional characters in this game. Now, they will normally have a different weapon from the main sage, which makes them stand out. For instance, Rafika obviously has the Great Eagle Bow, so someone like Pinnock will have a staff, or Vince will have a regular sword. And I actually like this because it's like the first time we can play as a Rito without it being a bow character, so you can see how they would work with swords and stuff. For instance, Vince will grab the sword with his feet and stuff, which is pretty cool. But I actually liked playing as these characters more than the sages because they felt somewhat unique and somewhat different. For instance, the Zora Lago was one of my favorites in the entire game, simply because he had like a very elegant style to him where he would constantly juggle and combo enemies one into the next, and it just felt very smooth and elegant compared to any other fighter in the game, and I just really loved fighting as him. Now, the two Gerudo warriors actually has something very similar to Sidon from Age of Calamity, where they have a rhythmic pattern to them where you have to hit the button right when the circle closes for some of their attacks to deal more damage, and I really like this stuff. It's nowhere near as in-depth as Sidon's moveset was in Age of Calamity, but it's a little taste of that, and it's just something like, once again, I wish more of the characters had. But not every character lands. There's definitely some characters that truly just feels like an NPC fighter added to this game in order to pad out the roster. For instance, the Zora Cadland just feels like a Zora very similar to the Sage Kia, where he just kind of swings the spear around and occasionally has a water attack, but just feels like a spear warrior at the end of the day. And the same thing goes for the two Hylian warriors, being Kino and Typhon, where Kino is pretty much just the big sword guy. He swings the big sword with some cool purple effects, but that's really about it with his moveset. And Typhon just is a guy with a shield who uses charge attacks for most of his abilities, which I don't know. As much as I love these guys, I just can't see them being that unique. And that's just the problem. This game may have 18 characters, which is the same amount as Age of Calamity, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like there's like 10 characters in this game, where a lot of them feel like repeat. And I'm not really sure if I ever really picked favorites or anything like that. My favorites came down to essentially who I needed to pick for that mission based on the side quests for those characters. I just found myself trying to do the side quests as much as possible, so picking characters that corresponded to whatever side quests I had left. Now, honestly, my favorite character in the game is probably Zelda. Zelda has a really solid moveset, especially later on as you fill out the rest of her skill tree, where she can literally use time rewind in order to rewind all of her attacks, and it's just like the coolest freaking thing ever. And the same exact thing goes for King Rauru, although Minoru just wasn't that interesting to me. Yeah, it's pretty cool, she's pretty much Tears of the Kingdom the character, how she can spawn all these different Zonai contraptions, but I don't know, it didn't flow really smooth to me, and just not that type of character, at least that fit my playstyle personally. But like I said, Calamo was awesome, the construct was awesome, but as there are some hits, there's definitely some misses, and yeah, I love the Zonai devices and stuff and how they help you take down a weak point, but overall, I really wish the roster had more significant feeling characters and that the movesets matched more what they were trying to do with Age of Calamity, because I really liked that. They all felt super unique because of those abilities. As far as the map and mission design and layout, I don't have a problem with it. I know a lot of reviewers were also upset that the map was more linear instead of more open like it was in Age of Calamity. But in a way, I don't care. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to keeps taking over the keep and moving on to the next one. So I don't really care that the map isn't open. And another plus is they don't have you, looking around each mission for the Koroks, which I believe was an actual counter in Age of Calamity. Thankfully, that's gone now. There are Koroks, but I don't think you have to find a certain amount for each mission unless it's like a post-game thing. Then I'm going to cry. But yeah, I do not think you have to find every single one in every single stage now, which is just a blessing. Also, there's some flying construct missions, and these kind of feel like some cheap jank. I don't know. It's trying to be like Star Fox, but it doesn't really feel like anything that I do matters. Like, I take some hits, I'm okay. I'm just spamming items, at a single target, and then it's over before you know it. Yeah, I don't know. These just didn't do much for me at all. And, I was excited to see the cutscenes with these scenes and then waited for this to end because, yeah, I didn't care. And, of course, like always, there's tons of side quests and missions that you have to do, using a specific character to take out a certain amount of enemies or bosses. And it's a cool way to get you to, literally push you to play with all these characters, because I'll also add all these side characters, like the two specific fighters for each faction. They don't really have anything to do with the main story. In fact, you can't even unlock them or play with them in the main story. It's all side missions if you want to play with those characters and unlock them, which is strange. It really does feel like they're just tossed in there. They have no important role. I don't even think they really have voice acting. At least most of them didn't. They were just there. I don't even remember them having any like real scenes within the cutscenes in the story at all. So yeah, it really does feel like they just, had to add some characters for the sake of adding characters to fill out this roster. And the thing is, I don't mind that. I don't mind playing as a different Rito warrior or some random Gerudo warrior or something like that. I find them to be pretty fun, and I was actually excited to see that there was just some new original characters. I just wish they were actually implemented well and given like a full moveset, like, the characters in Age of Calamity. I'm going to keep talking about Age of Calamity because so far I am enjoying my time a lot. I'm having a really fun time with this playthrough, but I still think I prefer Age of Calamity over Age of Imprisonment. So far, yep, I'm enjoying my time. I just wish that the characters' movesets felt a little bit more impactful. And also, I'll add this real quick. I know I didn't want to get into any spoilers, and I don't really think I can. Like, literally, there's no spoilers. Of course, the story, unfolds exactly the way you think it will, and at least so far, and I've heard that the ending is the exact same part that we all know how it ends from Tears of the Kingdom. Also, what's so strange is there's no unlockables. Yeah, I've seen from a lot of people that's already 100% of the game, there's no spoilers for me to even talk about because there's no additional characters. Yep, all these side missions and post-game, there's no extra characters to unlock, which is just so strange to me. Now, they did already announce that there would be 2 updates coming to this game. I think they already said they were going to be free, so maybe this is where we get that additional content, but I can't help but just feel like, yeah, it feels like they're lacking in some points with the content as well. Like, how is there not any additional characters? You're going to unlock all the characters in the game within the first 10 hours, like before you even get halfway through the game, which just feels so strange. You know what I mean? Now, they could have those DLC updates. Like I said, Age of Calamity had them, which didn't come out until like a year later, which kind of sucks because I don't care at that point. And the same thing happened with Age of Calamity. They added like Purah and Robbie, and it was like a year later, and I was just like, I jumped in, played with them for a little bit, did the extra missions, and then I never touched it again. And I just felt like I didn't get to really experience them. I can't even remember how Robbie and Purah actually played because it was so long ago. So yeah, I hate that method. I wish that stuff was just there at the front like Sakurai does with Kirby Air Riders. But yeah, I don't know. I think right now I'm sitting around a 7.5 with this game so far, where I think with Age of Calamity, I ended up giving that one like an 8 or even an 8.5. I think that is a really good Hyrule Warriors experience. So, so far, I'd rather play Calamity, but this is still a really good game. Let me know how your time has been so far. Oh yeah, something I just want to throw in at the last second. Music. So the music is good. Nothing crazy to me. Age of Calamity had some really great remixes, like truly some of the best songs I think out of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I still listen to them to this day, where this time, I get it, you gotta kind of come up with a new way to have remixes of those songs. So instead of it being like the Champions themes that they remixed, this time they remixed the actual town's themes, which a lot of them are slow and peaceful, and trying to remake those songs into like fast-paced combat just didn't really sound right. Like especially the Zora one, the Zora Domain remix was just strange and awkward sounding, although the Goron City one was really good. So it's like kind of hit or miss. There's some that I was like, okay, that's really catchy, and then there's some I'm like, So yeah, soundtrack's okay. But let me know if you enjoy this game, if you didn't enjoy this game, if you're indifferent, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Zelda. And thank you guys so much for tuning in, and have a blessed day. See you guys.